You never get rest when you're an adult. You gotta always do things. I'm just trying to explain to my wife that I was trying to keep a certain time frame open to try to experiment, streaming at a certain time and see if it would boost up my views and everything. But she just seems to do what the dogs do. They fuck up my lives. I thought I was running a live. I had to stop what I was doing to snatch something out my dog's mouth. Apparently, the live went down. I'm over here thinking I'm running shit. Only to find that I wasn't. So it's not easy doing what you want to do what you love when everybody wants to get in the way. But what would you expect from these fucks? They're currently punished for eating sneakers.
To the president, both personally and now in a professional capacity. And he was making the argument that Congress had delegated a clear congressional power, the power to impose tariffs, the power to tax, to the executive. And one of the justices, Donald Trump's appointee, Justice Gorsuch, was pressing on the question of whether Congress really can delegate specific congressional powers to the executive or not. On page 68 of the transcript of the oral argument in that case, Justice Gorsuch was pressing this Solicitor General, Donald Trump's personal attorney. What's the reason to accept the notion that Congress can hand off the power to declare war to the president? And the Solicitor General said, well, we don't contend that. Again, that would be an abdication, not a delegation. I stand here, Mr. President, to urge my colleagues, and I've done this often during my 12 and a half years in the Senate, not to abdicate. Don't abdicate the power to declare war. Of all the powers given to the Article I branch, this is the one that should be most jealously guarded. The reason the framers put this decision in the hands of Congress.
Right, Senator Tim Kaine speaking on the Senate floor on really just the actions that he is hoping that will happen in the future there with No War Without Congress mission. We are going to take a 2-minute break on the Live Down from Fox. When we come back, we're getting closer to the NTSB briefing on an update on the tragic crash of the UPS cargo plane that happened back on Tuesday night. We'll get some analysis on the investigation when we come back on Live Now. And we're back here for you on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Thanks again for joining us, continuing to bring you some of the day's biggest top stories and headlines. Coming up at the top of the hour, we will have the latest NTSB briefing on the horrible UPS plane crash that happened on Tuesday evening. Right now, we are learning the latest updates there, coming as 12 dead, 9 still missing. And we want to continue to talk about this, get some analysis on the investigation. So we want to bring in our next guest to help break that all down and so much more. Please welcome everyone, Stephen Marks, aviation attorney. Great to have you on. And Stephen, first off, when we are just in the initial phases of the investigation, what is really happening behind the scenes as investigators still try to piece together everything that is happening that really could take more than a year?
Well, right now, unfortunately, it's been taking a lot longer than a year for the investigators. And now that there's a federal shutdown, I suspect it's even going to be longer because they're short-staffed. And that might be part of the problem for this particular flight. As far as the process goes, the NTSB will immediately gather all of the maintenance records, the flight records, the logbooks, pilot information. They will secure the wreckage itself. One of the things that's the hardest thing and the most difficult emotionally is to identify bodies. We had issues in Ethiopian Air and in the Lion Air, given the nature of those crashes. Hopefully that won't occur because it's horrible for the families. But this is not the first time an engine has detached from an aircraft.
Yeah, and let's talk about that there. When it seems like maintenance logs is going to be very crucial here. How fast do investigators get a handle on that and really start going back in time on this aircraft?
Very quickly. They will secure their records almost immediately. They may not have analysis, and one of the problems with NTSB investigations is the fact that they rely upon the people they're investigating to provide them with critical information. So in a Boeing case, Boeing is often a participant and influences the way in which the investigation is conducted. I've always felt like that's like having somebody, a criminal, do their own DNA analysis. It's not as independent as one would think, even though it's an independent agency. We have the same problem with sign-offs on maintenance. There are designated representatives that are not from the FAA that are able to sign off on maintenance. And now with the government shutdown, we have fewer and fewer independent regulators who are able to examine. Their focus is on what's called Part 121 operations or commercial flights, like we all are familiar with, the Deltas, Uniteds, American Airlines of the world. That is where their focus has been and will continue to be. And they're very short-staffed even before the government shutdown in these investigations. The most important information is going to come from the flight data recorder, the FDR, and from the cockpit voice recorder. There probably wasn't much time for the pilots to communicate, and they certainly would not have had any time to communicate with the tower because this happened at the most critical stage of any flight, which is takeoff. I mentioned there was a previous crash that occurred. I represent all the victims in Holland, and that crash was this LL 747, where they were at altitude and an engine fell off and hit an apartment building in Amsterdam, killing 47 people and injuring hundreds of people on the ground. That's the only, in my lifetime, the only other engine detachment. The commonality between the two planes is they were both cargo freighters. The maintenance requirements on a cargo freighter is not as strict as with a passenger airline. You're not going to get as much scrutiny and robust oversight as you would on a commercial flight. And most of the time, the operators will do the maintenance themselves or oversee the maintenance and use their own employees as designated representatives to sign it off. And obviously, there's an incentive when you're doing an operation or signing off on a plane that has cargo that they need to get up in the air and there's a commercial activity involved and there's not independent oversight. That's when these things can occur.
And Stephen, how hard is it for victims' families? Of course, they want to get the answers to find out what exactly happened and how their loved ones passed away so tragically. It's hard because they don't get the answers right away. And how is that moment there where they have to continue to wait and wait, and hopefully they get some sort of understanding when it's all over, and to make sure that this sort of stuff doesn't happen to another family?
Well, the passengers typically, and that's what I do, is represent aviation passengers injured or killed in air disasters. What they typically are concerned about is finding out why the event occurred, making sure it does not occur again, and holding those responsible accountable for what their actions are. In the big public crashes like this one, where there's a lot of public interest, the NTSB will hold press conferences like they're doing here, like they did in Boeing Max, even though they were overseas. But certainly when the crash occurs in the United States, there's a lot more media attention, and there's more pressure on the NTSB to release information as it comes out, even though they're not required to do so. And the typical crash, we can wait 2 years before we get the first document because the maintenance records aren't copied, and most statute of limitations expire in 2 years in the United States. And so the way the FAA is working in recent years has been very problematic for victims. But we overcome that. We do our own independent investigation that's not going to be influenced by the operator, by the manufacturer, or by a maintenance company. And we eventually get copies of records from other sources, because usually there'll be another facility that did work on the aircraft that will have a copy of the historical records, even if the complete historical records are with the aircraft and with the operator taken by the NTSB. So there are vehicles by which you can investigate the crash independent from the NTSB.
And Stephen, what do you think needs to happen going forward, and really in aircraft investigation, so there would be more transparency at levels that really everyone can see?
Well, what it typically would happen, and this is the biggest problem, the NTSB will keep the wreckage, they'll keep all of the documentation, they won't release it until a final report, and then they release the docket, which has all of the information, pilot and crew information, historical maintenance records, pilot logbooks, engine frame, logbooks, and so on. And that information, there's no reason why that should not be released immediately to the public. It's not going to change. It is factual information. There is no reason why it needs to be secured and wait for a final NTSB report and a final NTSB probable cause hearing, which I told you before, unfortunately is taking sometimes over 2 years for that to occur, which really hampers the victim's ability to proceed against all the responsible parties. And there's no reason for it. And all that information, including the cockpit voice recorder readout and the flight data recorder readout, should be released. In foreign crashes, that's what occurs. We get, like in Lion Air and the Ethiopian Air, we got the transcripts early. And a lot of my foreign crashes, I get transcripts and documentation very early. It's rather unique what the NTSB does in holding the information back from the public.
And lastly, Stephen, talk a little bit about the complexity of this crash, because we're not only having victims on the aircraft itself, but away from the aircraft. Talk a little bit about how that plays a big role into the complexity of investigations as well.
That really doesn't add too much to the time involved in the investigation. The victims on the ground will have absolute rights against those responsible, just like the pilots would if they're not their employers, because there are some work comp issues, workers' compensation issues that prevent some limitations on employer liability. But in many, many crashes, the ground victims, those cases are usually the easiest, because clearly there was an operational problem. And ultimately, under the Federal Aviation Rules and Regulations, the FARs, the pilot and operator are ultimately responsible for the safe operation of the aircraft. So you don't even need sometimes maintenance records to get into the details of who did what, because it's almost automatic liability to some extent. There are a lot of complications, legal issues in aviation matters, and there's a lot of expertise that's required. But the ground victims will have the equal claim, just like a passenger would have.
There we go. Stephen Marks, thanks so much for joining us on Live Now from Fox. Great information and analysis. As always, we appreciate the updates, and we will again be featuring the full NTSB briefing when it happens today. But we appreciate you coming on early.
Thank you for having me.
You take care. All right, everyone, and we will take another 2-minute break here on Live Now from Fox. Top of the hour, we will have the update there from the NTSB that is coming up in less than 10 minutes. We'll be back here with more on Live Now.
Trixie. Of course.
Order's in.
Done.
Trixie.
I apologize, y'all. I had this going in.
Hey, I miss you too.
What's going on, Mona M and Barack Players?
What? How you doing? What?
What?
I miss you too.
You sneaker eaters?
Mama miss you too. That's it. Okay. Where's that stuff? Where's the bag?
What happened?
Give
me a second.
We will be getting a news conference out of.
Oh, you want the bag? Give me a second.
Security task force coming together to talk
What's going on?
about recent arrests involving drug trafficking, violent crime, and weapons charges. So we'll be bringing that to you a little bit later here on Live Now.
Yeah, stop fighting in your home.
TSB briefing that will be coming up at the top of the hour, talking about the UPS cargo plane crash that happened back on Tuesday.
It's the Schmitz.
Capitol Hill. More senators speaking on the floor.
Colorado and the United
They have
States
different ones.
own chairman
This is
Mark
Dean about-
profound gratitude for his decades of service. We also thank his
I was
wife
giving him
for his-
banana. She doesn't really care for it, but he does.
He likes it?
Working with him has been one of the greatest honors of my life and my time in the Senate. And I wish him well in his retirement as he enjoys well-deserved time with his loved ones. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Keep an eye on the Senate floor there. In the meantime, we do have another senator, so let's listen in here on Live Now.
September, Donald Trump has ordered our military to engage in 16 strikes in the Caribbean and in the Eastern Pacific Ocean. Those strikes have killed more than 65 people.
Oh,
Each one
you
of
get
those
a
strikes,
treat.
each person killed, was done without the necessary legal basis or proper justification to this Congress and the American people. Now, amid a buildup of forces in the Caribbean, the administration is even reportedly considering action against Venezuela itself. Mr. President, we are not powerless against this lawlessness, and that is why I rise today in support of this resolution. I rise because no president can unilaterally decide to use our military to target or kill anyone that they simply claim to be a threat. I rise because if we do
That's
not
supposed to be
hold
good
this
for them?
president
Yes,
accountable,
right.
we abdicate our responsibility to be a voice for the American people and instead embolden Trump to intensify
What's good, Loud
this
Sloth,
conflict.
Baroque
I rise
players,
because these actions
and Mona
could
M,
quickly escalate
and anybody else
to a
out there.
conflict that could destabilize the Western Hemisphere and would put the lives of American troops on the line. I
You got them
rise
out, didn't
because as we see this president
Robert,
abuse the
why
fundamental
you got door
trust
closed? You're
and
lying.
purpose of our
What's this
powerful
door closed?
military,
What
both
this is
abroad and
I
here at
moved it because
home
I
in our
almost
own
slipped on it when I was going
cities.
over
It is
here.
imperative
I didn't let them
that
out,
we
you
push
can check.
back
So you
against
moved it over
this
here?
Yeah,
relentless
I had it over
moves.
here and it fell, and I just kept on putting it and it
And I've
just ended
seen
up wherever.
this from
Yeah,
my own
I don't wanna
perspective.
see this over here.
Whether that was working
'Cause I
as a
don't
State
believe it.
Department
Because
officer
that
embedded
goes over, so I
with the
can't see
military
it.
out in Afghanistan,
Dude, that you
or
can
my
look through the
work at the
camera.
Pentagon,
I didn't have it
or
closed
my
all day.
work at the National Security Council, working to try to counter the terrorist group ISIS. I saw the importance of us being able to do that, but doing it in a way that is in accordance with our own laws, to be able to both ensure unity as a government, but
Right?
also to ensure
Gogurt,
that our
yeah.
service
Where is it?
members
I forgot about them. I think it's in the
fighting
drawer.
have the protections that they need,
Yeah.
that they know
I mean, I still
that the
wanted something,
entirety
but we didn't get
of our
nothing.
government
Like what?
leadership is behind them,
I wanted something
that
to
our
eat,
country
snack, but
is
we
with
can't.
them.
Like what?
But that is not what we have right now. The first step in fighting back against the lawlessness is understand the importance of the War Powers Resolution. Now, in this very chamber 53 years ago, Senator Javits, debating the overturning of President Nixon's veto of the War Powers Resolution, called the power to bring America into war, quote, most awesome power in the possession of any sovereignty. This resolution, he said, is about ensuring, quote, the broad representation of the people in the Congress, a voice in exercising that power. Now, Senator Javits reminded this chamber in the wake of the Vietnam War that, quote, wars cannot be successfully fought except with the consent of the people and with their support. What we've seen is a president in Donald Trump who thinks he can use that awesome power against anyone he wants, anytime he wants. That is not what the law says. That is not what our founders
No, I'm
intended.
not giving you a coupon.
Our founders intended for the people to have a say
I don't
in
care.
when we commit our sons and daughters to harm's way. Even in an emergency, the law requires the president to seek Congress's approval within a 60-day window to continue action. Well, in this circumstance, that window closed on Monday, with zero indication that the White House will stop taking military action,
Those little hairs
even
get in the
without
way.
clear legal
This
basis.
the
to
shampoo they
continue.
said only use this once every
And after
30 days.
they first
So they said
recognized the
they
legal
done once every
parameters
30 days
of
on
the
top
War
of that.
Powers Resolution
No, that's
back in
not about-
September,
That's what
now
they
the
said, but I
administration
mean,
is
they should get
arguing that
baked
they are not
this
bound
weekend.
by this
They
law.
are getting paid this weekend.
They've changed their tune, contradicting their own
These
arguments
fucking
in order
dogs
to get
gotta
around the law.
stink.
Of course, that
And I
won't
like the
stop
sweet
them
smell.
from
It smells
pretending
like-
they have
It smells like
legal
lemon.
grounds and fabricating
I do smell it.
justification
So you can
where none
spray this
exists.
where they sleep at.
You'll hear
and
them
everything,
reference a
and-
list that designates certain cartels as terrorist groups.
Look how she got it in
But
her
the
mouth, looking
authority
at
to
me. Like
pursue
she got
groups
scars.
on
Look,
this
look.
list provides
Look at she-
absolutely
she's looking at me
no
like that.
basis
Mr. Yard.
for the use of deadly
Look,
force.
she got a scar in her mouth, right?
And even
Yeah.
worse,
Let me see
they
if I can
still
catch
have
it.
provided zero proof
You
of
should
how
put it
they
down.
know.
Ah, you had to put it down when I went to catch you with it.
That was cute. She had it on the side of her mouth like it was a cigar.
Trump is
Hey, Miss
simply
Dior.
giving
Ah.
himself
Hey, Miss
the
Dior.
power to designate.
Miss Dior.
Miss Dior.
Here, Miss Dior.
Without proper legal
She's
review or
She
transparency
had
to
it like a
the
dog in her
They
mouth.
think that we're gonna try to snatch it, but they're like, don't take my treat. I don't care about your treat that
Is
much.
she still eating
We
it?
cannot allow.
Yeah, they is like paying attention to what we do. Excuse the
After all,
Yeah, I love
it
you.
is
Send me
it will
mess
not be
here.
Donald Trump
I love
who
you.
feels the consequences of further conflict. It will be military families and the American people. That is why decisions of war require deliberation, careful consideration, and a clear legal basis. That is why they require congressional authorization. Through this resolution, we uphold our responsibility to give voice to Americans on the safety of our troops and the
Paper towels
security
are
of
on
our
this
great
side.
nation.
I'ma
We
fuck
need to
you
give
up.
that
I moved. That's
voice
too much
in this
stuff
moment.
there, bro. They
This
kept
is a
falling.
crisis
No, it's not.
that can spiral
You the only one
into
that's
a
making it
conflict,
fall. Nobody else making it fall but you.
conflict
What that
into
tells
an
you?
all-out war.
I'm not a
Nah,
I'm
what
not,
that tells
I'm
you?
not a wide back bitch.
Targets
You
are-
are a
I
wide
wanna
back
hear
bitch.
it.
You're the only one that's making it fall.
Show strikes
Don't believe
have
the
been
hype
launched
people.
from Colombia, and apparently
I'm
those
slimming
carrying
out.
citizens from
You act like
other
you fat as
neighboring
fuck.
countries. The
I know
Nobody else
administration
in
has
here,
even
nobody else in
admitted
here
they
knock
don't
it down but
know
you.
I think it's the
each individual
diabetes.
No, it's not the
identity
diabetes.
of those targeted. To still
You don't wanna
execute
believe it?
legal strikes
happy
is
No,
for
it's
a
your
you.
raw
reckless and
jackass
dangerous
knocking shit
use
down.
I'm
of
happy
our
for
powerful
you.
military.
Use some more
And as
Ozempic.
Trump considers expanding strikes to
I don't know what you're
include
talking
land
about.
targets
Of course you
within
don't.
Venezuela.
We're not pushing this shit on
That's what we're talking
anybody.
about. Within Venezuela, we move further towards a war
Uh-oh.
that would
You're
destabilize
talking about
the
war with
entire
Venezuela.
The American people don't want us to start a war within Venezuela, and their voices should be heard, not ignored by this president. Now, there is a final reason why I rise in support of this resolution, because letting Donald Trump ignore the law abroad makes him think he has a free pass to do it right here at home.
Democrat New Jersey?
Donald
Yes.
Trump thinks if he can do this in the Caribbean, he can do it on the streets of Chicago. He could use the military for his own political retribution and consolidation of power in and outside our borders. After all, in his own words, quote, we're under invasion from within. No different than a foreign enemy, but more difficult in many ways because they don't wear uniforms. That's what the president said. We cannot be complacent as he's already sends troops into our cities as a tool of intimidation against his political enemies. As I close here, I just want to say that when we know the American people are not blind to what Trump is doing, they know we're not powerless to stop him. It's time to step up and show them we believe in the law, that we believe in the voices of the American people, that we believe in protecting our service members, and that we won't stand idly by in the face of lawlessness. So I hope all of my colleagues join me in passing this resolution. It's our power, it's our duty, it's our responsibility. Thank you, I yield back.
Senator Kim on the floor there, Democrat from New Jersey. It is a new hour on Lockdown from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page, continuing to guide you throughout the afternoon of top stories and headlines from across the country. Coming up in just moments out of Kentucky, we will be getting an NTSB update regarding the UPS cargo plane crash that happened back on Tuesday, and we'll be getting the very latest there from the officials, and as soon as that does happen, we will bring it to you in full. In the meantime, let's go out to Nashville, Tennessee, where the Homeland Security Task Force out in Tennessee talking about recent arrests. This is live, so let's listen in on Live Out from Fox.
The lead prosecutors in the cases we are talking about today. You'll hear from some of our law enforcement partners later in this presentation, but I want to recognize the following agencies.
Just working on my arm at the
through
same
their
time.
representatives have worked very diligently on the efforts we are talking about. I want to start with our federal partners and first represent Homeland Security Investigations Acting Special Agent in Charge Colin Jackson. Representing the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, Special Agent in Charge Jamie Van Vliet. Representing the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Assistant Special Agent in Charge Jeff Pfeiffer. Representing the United States Army's Criminal Investigation Division, Special Agent in Charge John McCabe. Representing the Criminal Investigations Branch of the Internal Revenue Service, Supervisory Special Agent Barrett Dixon. Representing the U.S. Postal Service Investigations, Postal Inspector Team Leader Greg Smith. Our United States Marshal Denny King is here. Denny's trying to hide from the cameras, but he's here. And representing the United States Secret Service's Special Agent in Charge, Andy Kirk. Our state...
All right, we'll go back to that in just a little bit. Let's go out now to Kentucky. The NTSB briefing starting.
I'm Todd Inman. I'm a board member for the National Transportation Safety Board. I'm the on-scene board member for this accident. With me is Shahoon Chin, our investigator in charge. Now, before I tell you about our progress to date, I do want to again extend our sincere condolences to everyone that is involved in this crash. A little while ago, I had a chance to meet with the families of those who may have perished or the survivors from the ground part of this. and it's a very tough time for everyone. We understand that. We can certainly appreciate everything they're going through, and our condolences are going out to them extensively. Our family assistance group has been working to assist and inform these families and survivors.
This from that plane crash?
They will continue to do this support to all the families who lost loved ones and those that may still be missing throughout the entire investigation.
You saw
both
it?
on and scene, and before we issue our investigative report. Now, let me stress one thing. Our first and foremost priority is the recovery of those who are still missing. This investigation is not impeding that in any way. They deserve to be treated with dignity
Probably
and
can't
with
find
respect
parts.
that they've earned.
To the body
We're working
found.
very closely
It was
with
a
the
crazy
local authorities
explosion.
to make sure that if there's any identification of a survivor or recovery of remains, anything like that, that is the first thing that takes priority. And so I think it's important that we understand that. I also want to point out the coordination that we've had with the Louisville and the state EMA directors. Their work has been extraordinary, especially as we continue on into day 3 of this investigation. The Louisville EMA director has been a great asset to us and to everyone, and is diligently working to make sure we can bring closure to as many people as possible. It's been a very active response. Today is our first day fully of being able to investigate. So I'd like to also tell you a little bit about what we call the party process. This has been in place with the NTSB for approximately 30 years, and we offer this party status to those companies, government officials, agencies, and associations that have employees or activities that were involved in the accident and crash, and that they can bring technical expertise to help us understand it. In our organizational meeting, which occurred last night, we wrapped up at about 9:30 last night. In fact, the teams actually continued to meet after that for several hours. We named the following parties to this investigation: the Federal Aviation Authority, United Parcel Service, the Independent Pilots Association, sometimes referred to as IPA, the Teamsters Union, which represents the mechanics for UPS, Boeing Corporation, which is the now manufacturer of the aircraft after a consolidation with McDonnell Douglas, and GE Aircraft Engines. Now, the NTSB has put together a multidisciplinary team, and I mentioned yesterday the different groups that we have put together. And so we have actually brought in additional specialists. Right now, the NTSB team is over 30 individuals. We brought in additional vehicle performance specialists and a materials engineer. And of course, they are being supported by dozens of individuals in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere in the country. We have no issue bringing any resource that we need to make sure we have the right people in place while we are on the ground here. Now, we have received preliminary flight data information. This would be commonly referred to as ADS-B. These data points that were provided by the FAA showed the aircraft for the last reporting time was at 475 feet of altitude, traveling at a speed of 183 knots. This data point was collected at 5:13 and 32 seconds Eastern Standard Time on the night of the accident. This information will be coupled with the flight data recorder information and other information that we receive that will help us prepare a timeline of exactly what occurred and in what progression, what was known in either the cockpit or on the ground. And this is another important part of the information. Yesterday, we also did what was called a FOD walk. This is a foreign object debris. This FOD walk occurred on runway 17 left, or L, and 17 right, or R. During the FOD walk on 17R, we found multiple pieces of engine fan blades, along with the main component of the engine, of the number 1 engine, which is on the left side of the aircraft. We have transferred all of those to a secured location for further examination, and we'll be using that to further analyze any mechanical aspects. And I mentioned yesterday we had recovered the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder, often referred to as the FDR and the CVR. Last night, one of our recorder specialists flew overnight with that recorder, immediately went to the NTSB headquarters where we have a recorder's laboratory, and extracted the data from both the FDR and the CVR. We consider this a good extraction. with good data points, which means that we will have even more information to help paint a comprehensive picture. So with that, I'd like to introduce Shahoon, who can give you a few specific pieces of information regarding the flight data recorder.
Both recorders were recovered and disassembled at the NTSB Recorders Lab in Washington, D.C. The FDR, or the Flight Data Recorder, download was successful. It had about 63 hours of data over 24 flights, which included the accident flight. This FDR recorded about 420 parameters. Those parameters included altitude, airspeed, engine information, as well as system statuses for the onboard systems installed. The NTSB will form an FDR group at Washington, D.C. at our headquarters in the coming day. The CVR, or the Cockpit Voice Recorder, was also successfully downloaded. That contained about 2 hours of audio, which included the accident flight. The CVR group will convene at the NTSB in the coming day to do a transcription of the recorded audio for the accident flight.
And let me reiterate again, the NTSB does not release the audio of any cockpit voice recording. A transcript ultimately will be made available of the pertinent information regarding the actual flight itself.
You don't have to,
As
but you
Shahoon
want
said,
to.
this will take a few days to not only get the information, but to make sure it's validated and verified by the experts and the parties.
And what's going
So
on?
we
I
will not
forget
be
you. I
having
was
any
just doing a
information on
bunch
that for at
of
least another day or two.
runarounds.
So with that, we'll try to take a few of your questions. Again, I would ask that you raise your hand, tell me your name and the agency you represent. Joe. And you represent? So the question for those who may be watching is, we understand that the plane was in San Antonio, Texas for approximately 6 weeks, and what type of maintenance or what type of work was done on that. We are aware that this aircraft was there in San Antonio. We have actually started to pull those records down. We have a specific group that has experts in not only maintenance but repair, job cards, and all of the requirements of that. We're currently downloading that information and going back, and we will actually, as part of the investigative process, we will go back even further from that to get additional pertinent details about certain inspections and checks based on the age of the aircraft. And we will move forward and we will look at every piece of maintenance that was done, even from the San Antonio time all the way to the date of the flight. So those are pertinent and important information. We're aware of it, but it's going to be a laborious process to go through everything, especially whenever you're talking about 6 weeks of being there. We're also pulling CCTV information from the field to be able to understand anything that was being done around the aircraft in the days leading up to it. Yes, ma'am. So the question was, there's reports regarding delays in regard to the engine before the flight. We queried, and UPS has told us at this time there were no maintenance work done on the aircraft in question immediately prior to the flight that would delay it in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, one of our jobs is to make sure we verify anything that we may learn through multiple sources, but nothing to this point has been presented to us to dispute that. So our belief is today that there was not a maintenance issue regarding that aircraft prior to the flight subject. Tom?
Mr. Redmond, there was some reporting to suggest that the crew of that plane they were supposed to be on a different plane, and that plane was swapped out for maintenance issue. In other words, they were on the second plane to take to Honolulu. The previous plane that they had been assigned to may have been swapped out because of its own maintenance issue. Are you aware of that? And also, can you speak to if there is a broader concern about the MD-11, what steps will you take to ensure that that word is spread out and maybe there's a fleet-wide inspection?
You know, each time you ask a question, Tom, you ask two. But that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. The question was in regard to the incident aircraft. and that there's been some reporting or discussion of whether or not it had been swapped out by that crew to take a different plane to on its Honolulu flight. Right now, we've not gotten any specific information on it. The good news is UPS, their flight scheduling and all of their crews are being very cooperative with us, providing everything we need. So we will go back and look at that history, because whenever a crew is assigned, obviously sometimes that's a last minute change, but with cargo operations, it doesn't happen very quickly. If you have to move a lot of cargo and other things. So the good news is, again, we've got CCTV footage. We can be able to identify and validate that very quickly, but it is one part of the pre-flight information that will be part of our report. The second question was in regard to the MD-11s. And I can say this, every aircraft, based on its age, the number of hours and cycles, has to go through a series of checks that have been tested and verified over many years of this plane flying. We are going back and looking to confirm every one of those checks were conducted and to verify. And sometimes in accidents like this, we may make recommendations for a different check or a different type of work to be done. But the most important thing I can stress to you, we have no problem or concern if we find something that is of life safety or that is urgent, of making an urgent recommendation. To date, we have not found anything that would indicate we need to take that action, but we have no problem making that recommendation immediately when we find information that could help the traveling public and make them safer. Yes, ma'am. So the question is in regard to the plane victims and the victims on the ground. Let me again stress, we are not involved with the coroner's operation, the medical examiner, or the emergency management association. Sometimes in the course of the way we brief families, we may conduct separate briefings just because they have a different set of questions and concerns and issues. As I said earlier, earlier today, I briefed the families of those who were on the ground. There were approximately 50, 60 people. And it's a tough situation. It's hard. Their main issue is, where's my loved one? Because right now no one's been identified. After this conference, I will be briefing the families of those that were on the plane itself. So the only real differentiation for us is how they receive the information, which may be pertinent to what they need, especially in the early days of investigation. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the question was, will there be an effort to reconstruct the entire plane or just the engine? It depends on what we need to do. Right now, we're recovering still a lot of debris. I was at the incident location today and spent several hours walking. You can very clearly see a path, if you will, from where the airport was into where the debris field is. We can kind of see it aerially, but when you're standing there, you can see burnt trees. You can see molten. While we were there, we actually, one of the other engines was very prominently positioned, but it's a large item that will need crane work to be able to bring in. As I said earlier, the number one engine on the left side, we have already retrieved and put it into a secure location. We will do everything we need to find out what happened and to figure out how to keep it from happening again. We have no problem if we need to. We've reconstructed entire planes that were in the ocean before. The main thing is that we understand this and we get answers. One more question.
I just want to circle back to the history of the repairs. I know you guys are downloading that and sifting through that history. We've seen reports that if needed repairs on one of the steel planes and on the rest of the plane, how confident are investigators that those repairs satisfy the safety criteria for this plane?
So the question was regarding some reports that possible needed repairs that were done. Every aircraft operates with what in airline, such as UPS, operates with what they call minimum equipment or minimum requirements. The parameters can change based upon what the necessity is, because sometimes you can have something that maybe a light is out and it's still safe to fly. So there's a lot of information. The good news is we have a number of MD-11 pilots and mechanics that are all certified or instructors. Last night during our organizational meeting, the parties that were named to it and the individuals all had to give their background. We have hundreds of years of experience on the MD-11. and its maintenance. So I feel very comfortable that those experts are going to be able to see if any repairs should have been done or not. And again, if it's something we learn from this investigation, we have no problem making an urgent recommendation in order to correct the future activities to ensure the traveling public is safe. Thank you very much.
NTSB briefing, we're wrapping up, and just at this stage right now in the investigations, continuing to look at maintenance reports on the aircraft, and now the NTSB representative will be speaking to the victims' families, the crew members of the victims there. So again, a big update coming from the NTSB, and this investigation could take up to a year and even more after that as well. All right, we will take a 2-minute break on Live Down from Fox. Stay right here with us. More to come in just moments. Welcome back to Live Down from Fox. I'm your host, Mike Page. Let's go back out now to Tennessee, still live with the latest updates coming from the Homeland Security Tennessee Task Force, talking about latest arrests. Let's listen in on Live Down.
So there's 38 defendants, first of all. That's right. And it's spread out, I think, 8 to 9, 10 cases. Some of them, of course, the investigation started before this task force was announced. That then, of course, had crossover to the mission of that task force. And some of them are started since the task force was announced. Well, you've heard the kind of representative work that we have done so far, which is how we intend to go on, which is trafficking of dangerous narcotics, gang violence, gang members, gun violence, illegal firearms possession. That's what we're going to be focused on in the Homeland Security Task Force, the kind of real violent and dangerous crime that affects the lives of Tennesseans every day. Yes, sir.
The teacher said, it seems like your office, U.S. Attorney's Office, is a convener of this task force.
Been working on my arm while we doing this.
Like that, but it's not a bad way to put it.
Got to clean up on aisle 3.
To formalize this relationship with something that came from the Department of Justice, was the Attorney General involved at all? Could you just look up on
I think it's safe to say that while we are the convener here in the Middle District of Tennessee, there are going to be Homeland Security task forces across the United States in various areas of responsibility. So as a U.S. attorney, You know, I sit not only in the Middle District of Tennessee, but have the ability to command the resources of the Justice Department, federal agencies, and collaborate with state and local partners.
Was this your idea? Or did it come
Oh, no, it wasn't my idea. I'm not going to claim credit for that. No, this is something that is happening in other task forces across the United
Did
States.
you get an order or an email from the Department of Justice?
I know that there was a directive that we're going to stand up these Homeland Security task forces. I can't remember how it came to me. Anybody? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so a small update. I just left Kansas school. Had a meeting with the AP. I get a meeting with the
Yeah.
AP.
I don't know if we're first. I can tell you I think we're best. But I don't know if we're first. But I know that this is something you're probably going to see more of in this district and other places.
Okay. But I get there, and they do tell me that Chance will be receiving ISS for pushing
No.
What's good, Lousloff?
He does not accept it. He's not being ISS. She then tells me, well, just a little forewarning. He's already ISS, but I can't go get him.
I'm sorry, say it one more time. I missed it.
Immediately now. But all I was told was basically it was going to be.
I tell you, one of the ways that I think I'm going to answer that question, I'm going to call on Assistant Special Agent Jeff Pfeiffer with the FBI.
I gotta get ready to cut out and charge the phone up, but I'll be back in a little bit. I don't even want to get out right now. Just having one of those weeks. But I'm gonna get myself organized so that way you can become familiar from when I'm around.
I'm Jeff Pfeiffer.
Hopefully you enjoy the news.
Special Agent in charge of the FBI Nashville Field Office.